A strange thing happens the moment a real presence walks into a room. The air tightens, the noise dies. The liars look for exits they never used before. And that's exactly what unfolded the second your energy crossed their threshold. They didn't flee because of danger in the physical sense. No, that would be easy, predictable, heroic even. They retreated because something in your posture, your new quiet, your sharpened edges held up a mirror they've avoided their entire lives. You didn't announce anything. You didn't stump or roar or demand attention the way small minds do. You simply existed with a depth they weren't ready to face. And in that existence, their masks loosened. Their confidence cracked. The people who once spoke too loudly went silent, as if your presence reminded them of the power they pretended to have. See, some individuals crumble, not when someone attacks them, but when someone finally outgrows the world they used to hide their insecurities. There's a beautiful psychology behind their sudden disappearance. People who trade in manipulation rely on one thing to maintain their illusion: predictable reactions. They build entire strategies around the assumption that you will respond the same way you always have. When you shift the pattern, when your silence becomes surgical instead of submissive, their calculations fall apart. They start scrambling internally, searching for the version of you they used to control. And when they can't find it, panic spreads through their chest like smoke filling a locked room. This wasn't about fear of confrontation. It was fear of being seen by someone who now understands them better than they understand themselves. You walked in with a new clarity, and clarity is fatal to people who survive through confusion. Their retreat says more about their internal landscape than anything they ever said to you. It exposes the truth they've kept buried behind arrogance and theatrics. Deep down, they always sensed your potential, but they convinced themselves you'd never recognize it. They needed you unaware, apologetic, bending your identity around their comfort. But then something changed. Your silence grew teeth. Your calm stopped signaling defeat and instead started radiating control. Suddenly, the person they underestimated was the only one in the room who wasn't posturing. And that terrifies fragile egos. They vanish because your presence reveals their hollowness. They hide because your power makes their illusions collapse in on themselves. Consider how dominance truly works in social dynamics. It's rarely the loudest person who holds authority. It's the one who doesn't react, the one whose energy disrupts the carefully curated hierarchy others depend on. When you entered the room, you didn't challenge them directly. You challenged the narrative they built around you. That narrative once made them feel superior. But after your transformation, it no longer made sense. You didn't fit into the box they created. You broke the script. And when the script breaks, actors who only know how to perform panic. Their vanishing wasn't random. It was instinctive survival. They needed distance from the truth you now embodied. What truly scares them is the quiet transformation they didn't see happening. You evolved in the dark, in the spaces where their judgment couldn't reach you. Every insult sharpened you. Every betrayal thickened your patience. Every moment spent underestimated became a brick in the foundation of a stronger identity they had no idea was forming. When you returned with that new presence, steady, unreadable, composed, they felt the shift before they understood it. Their minds started racing, replaying the past, wondering when the power dynamic flipped. And nothing frightens a controlling personality more than realizing the person they dismissed can no longer be dismissed. There's also the matter of moral exposure. Your energy forced them to confront the way they treated you, the stunts they pulled, the disrespect they normalized. When someone grows, their growth casts a shadow over those who refuse to do the same. That shadow is uncomfortable. It makes excuses evaporate. It turns casual cruelty into something shameful. Your entrance didn't hurt them because of what you did. It hurt them because of what it revealed. Healing is humiliating to people who depend on your wounds to feel superior. The retreat wasn't only emotional, it was strategic. Individuals who rely on dominance need certainty. They need to know where everyone stands, who is beneath them, who can be controlled, who will bend. When you arrived with a different center of gravity, you upset the balance. You didn't announce your return to power. You embodied it. No anger, no pleading, no eagerness to prove anything. That composure ruined every assumption they had about you. And when someone loses their map, they run. Their hiding is nothing more than a desperate attempt to regain control in a situation where they suddenly have none. Watch closely, and you'll see the real irony. The same people who once boasted, who once walked around as if they had you figured out, are now whispering to themselves, trying to rewrite the narrative before anyone notices they misjudged you entirely. Their avoidance isn't just fear, it's embarrassment. They realize they backed the wrong version of you. They realize their confidence came from misunderstanding your quiet, not from understanding your limits. Now that your quiet has become a weapon, they don't know how to stand in the same space without feeling exposed. And yet through all of this, the masterpiece lies in your restraint. Power doesn't require noise. Power doesn't need revenge. Power doesn't chase. Power simply is. You didn't walk into that room to intimidate anyone. You didn't come to prove anything or reclaim something you lost. You walked in as someone who finally understands themselves. And nothing disrupts fragile identities more than someone who no longer bows to their expectations. People flee from authenticity when all they've ever known is manipulation. Your growth created a truth they cannot coexist with, so they retreat instead. Those who mocked your growth now fear the evidence of it, because the moment your progress became undeniable, their jokes stopped being funny, even to them. Mockery was their shield, their way of convincing themselves that you were harmless, predictable, and stuck in the same small life they wanted you to inhabit. Laughter is the oldest defense mechanism in the book, and they used it well. Snickering behind your back, downplaying your efforts, twisting your intentions until your dreams sounded like delusions. But now the results of your work are staring them in the face, and the humor has dried up like cheap paint in a storm. Evidence disrupts denial, and your evolution shattered their illusion. They aren't afraid of you. They're afraid of what your transformation says about them. Each step you took in silence built a pressure they never felt coming. They thought you were all talk, someone who would fold the moment life demanded more from you. They believed their mockery would keep you small, that their dismissive tone would keep you in line. But growth done in solitude gains a kind of momentum that can't be undone. And when that momentum becomes visible, when your posture changes, when your eyes deepen, when your presence weighs heavier in the air, they feel it like a sudden gust hitting a house with weak foundations. They mock you to feel superior, and now that superiority is cracking. Mockery only works when the target stays beneath the joker. Once you rose above them, the jokes turned into a confession of their insecurity. Their fear comes from the realization that the person they belittled has outpaced them in ways they can't replicate. It's not just your confidence or your calm, it's the choices you made while no one was watching. You didn't broadcast your pain. You didn't beg for validation. You built quietly, strategically, without their approval. And that kind of growth is terrifying to people who depend on external validation to feel alive. Your transformation forces them to confront their stagnation. They mocked your efforts because your ambition threatened their comfort. Now the outcome threatens their ego. Nothing frightens a stagnant person more than witnessing someone evolve right in front of them. Power dynamics flip the moment results enter the room. Before, they controlled the narrative. They painted you as naive, unstable, overly hopeful, a dreamer with no discipline. They labeled your goals as unrealistic, because if they convinced you of that, they'd never have to deal with the discomfort of improving themselves. But then came the shift. Your silence stopped sounding like retreat and began sounding like discipline. Your absence stopped looking like isolation and began looking like rebirth. When growth becomes visible, it becomes irreversible in their mind. They fear the evidence because it forces them to acknowledge your strength, something they spent so long denying. The strange part is how fast admiration and fear can blend. They never expected to watch you rise, yet now they can't stop observing you. They watch the way you carry yourself. They analyze your decisions. They replay the moments when they underestimated you, realizing how foolish they looked. Their fear isn't physical, it's existential. Your growth means they misjudged your character, your potential, your resilience. And nothing bruises a fragile ego more deeply than discovering they were wrong. They mocked what they didn't understand. And now the truth of your transformation stands taller than their pride.